Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Jokia Rogers. Today we begin in southern Africa, where Sall Matekane has been sworn in as Lesotho's Prime Minister. He took the oath of office in front of thousands of Basotho and presidents from southern Africa. The 64-year-old is a well-regarded businessman in Lesotho, but a novice in politics. His 6-month-old political party won the recent elections with a huge margin, but fell short of majority. He'll now lead Lesotho after forming a coalition with 2 smaller parties. Political analysts see his victory as a sign that the people of Lesotho want a new kind of leadership. Staying with politics, several Senegalese organizations are urging President Macky Sall to dispel doubts and openly declare that he will not run for his own succession in 2024. A candidacy, they say, could spread chaos. Mr. Sall, elected in 2012 and re-elected in 2019, has been keeping his intentions vague for months, while opinions are divided on his legitimacy to run, and the opposition promises fierce resistance if he takes that step. The Constitution stipulates that a president cannot serve more than 2 consecutive terms, but several voices are being raised in the presidential camp to defend the idea of a 3rd term, citing the 2016 constitutional revision, which they say would reset the clock. In 2012, Abdoulaye Wade's candidacy for a 3rd term of office provoked violence that left several people dead. The NGOs point out that Mr. Sall had fought against the 3rd mandate, a struggle in which he was the main beneficiary. The NGOs are, however, of the opinion that they want to avoid a scenario of chaos for the country. Elsewhere, a fire outbreak has consumed hectares of bushland in Kenya's Mount Longonot, which is a popular destination for hikers in the Rift Valley region. The Kenyan Wildlife Service said in a statement that it put out the fire that began on Thursday. Officials refuted rumors circulating on social media that there had been a volcanic eruption and said it wanted to assure that the park is safe to all visitors. The mountain, which is a dormant volcano, has been one of the most talked about topics on social media, with some users claiming they experienced earth tremors as a result of the supposed eruption. The cause of the fire on the mountain has not yet been established. Last year, a similar outbreak of fire reduced a portion of vegetation in the park to ashes. Let's get more on this. Kenyan journalist Cyrus Umbati joins us from Nairobi. You're welcome to Network Africa.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So we understand that the fire ravaged 40 hectares of bushland before it was put out. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, the fire started last evening, that's last night, and in the park in Nairobi, in Kenya. When it started from one side of the peak of the mountain, initially people thought it was an eruption, but they now, when the officials went there, they came out and said that it was a fire incident, it was not a volcanic eruption as it was anticipated. The efforts to contain the fire went overnight until this morning, Friday. That's when they announced that the fire had been contained. The mountain is popular, as you said, earlier on, for hikers from locally and international visitors who come here. So that's why there were concerns that maybe it was a volcanic eruption, because since 1800, that's the time, the last time it erupted. And then, according to geologists, the mountain has a dormant volcano which has yet erupted so far.
Some speculations have been a volcanic eruption of the mountain, but the cause of the fire is still unknown. What other detail can you tell us?
Officials are investigating the incident, and suspicions are that it's a kind of arson. So far, what we know is that the area is among which is affected by drought. It's very dry, and it's likely that 1 or 2 of those hikers who are there might have dropped a cigarette or kind of lit the fire intentionally. But then it has been contained so far, and it's safe for hikers to go back there. That's what they're saying. It's safe enough. You can go there if you want.
There was a similar outbreak last year. We're seeing this now. What measures are the authorities putting in place to curtail further outbreaks in the future?
It's difficult, for example, for people to man such a mountain because it's so huge, its volume is big to say the less. The only thing they do is public education, is just educating people. Don't smoke there. When you smoke, make sure you kind of silence your your cigarette. Don't light the fire intentionally. So it's just education. You can do it. You can't stop people from. People have intent to cause such kind of incident action. So just public education, which they do whenever those who are visiting there, they are usually told what to do and not what to do.
And lastly, this park is loved by hikers and tourists in the region. How are Kenyans reacting to this?
It's a concern, as you said earlier on. There were rumors on social media that there was a volcano and there was a tremor. It was not true. There was no link between the fire and the tremor, which was felt in the region. People are concerned because, especially weekends, that's when most people go there to hike the mountain. There were fears that it was a volcano, but when Kenya Wildlife Service issued the statement saying it was safe, now Kenyans are calm. They're saying, "Oh, that's the case. We can go now for hiking as you are planning at the weekend."
Right, thank you for your time today on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Let's move on to other stories. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, has called for a scale-up in support for communities affected by drought in the Horn of Africa region, including nearly 20,000 Somalis that have crossed the border into Kenya this year, fleeing a complex mix of conflict and drought. Mr. Grandi was on a 5-day mission to Kenya and Somalia to assess the drought emergency. He visited Kenya's Dadaab and Kakuma refugee camps and Kalobei settlement. He was on the last leg of a tour to Somalia and Kenya this and last week to highlight the current drought situation in affected countries, as well as look at opportunities for solutions.
What you see behind me is a large number of new arrivals. Somalia is going through one of its periodic crises. You have persistent insecurity, especially in the area bordering Kenya because of the action of armed group, Al-Shabaab and others. But you also have a devastating drought that I saw by myself in Somalia just a few days ago. And this has prompted more people to come here. We estimate that about 50,000 have already joined the others, so swelling again the population of this camp. We can involve more in this area, in particular, development actors, to address some of the longer-term issues, not only for the refugees, but also for the host communities, because let us not forget, Garissa County, where we're now here in Dadaab, is next door to Somalia, and both are severely affected. We need to move at multiple levels, the humanitarian level, but also the development level, in order to give people livelihoods so that they can break the cycle between crisis of insecurity, crisis of drought, crisis caused by climate change, and give them a sustainable future. This is a difficult year for UNHCR, for its partners, for the humanitarian community. The war in Ukraine and its very widespread impact is causing a shortage of aid, of humanitarian resources in many parts of the world and here as well. And let's not forget, we may be facing cuts in assistance where, and these people behind me are the testimony of that, where we need more humanitarian assistance. People fleeing in Ukraine or people fleeing in Somalia all face hardship and all deserve the same humanitarian attention. Lives are lives, wherever they are.
Meanwhile, the High Commissioner is pushing governments, development partners and private sector donors to help find solutions for refugees to enable them rebuild and become self-reliant. Filippo Grandi called on global leaders to spare no efforts in assisting countries in the Horn of Africa to overcome the worst drought in 40 years and avert a famine.
Kakuma has two sites. One is Kakuma Camp, a fairly traditional refugee camp where UNHCR is working with many partners. And very interestingly, a settlement, a site nearby called Kalobeye. This is the site of a project that we launched in 2018, founded essentially on the concept of refugee self-reliance, inclusion in national services, peaceful and mutually reinforcing coexistence with local communities, with host communities, and investments that benefit both the host communities and the refugees.
And access to northern Ethiopia is urgent to save the lives of millions of people facing a perfect storm of deprivation. That's according to the officials from the World Health Organization. Outbreaks of cholera and measles have been recorded in Amhara and Afar, where aid agencies have limited access. However, officials say childhood vaccinations have stopped and that supplies of IV fluids, insulin and antibiotics have run out. Fewer than 1 in 10 health centers are functioning. There are acute shortages of food and fuel, with an estimated 89% of the population in Tigray now food insecure and 29% of children suffering malnutrition. Across Tigray, Amhara and Afar, the United Nations estimates that 13 million people need humanitarian assistance. Peace talks between the Ethiopian government and Tigrayan representatives began in South Africa this week, but have not led so far to any increased access for humanitarian organizations. And troops clashed with M23 rebels around a strategic highway in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Following a recent flare-up between the two sides, the M23 resumed fighting in late 2021 after lying dormant for years. It has since captured swathes of territory in northern Kivu province, including the strategic town of Bunagana on the Ugandan border in June. The group's resurgence has destabilized regional relations in Central Africa, with the DRC accusing its smaller neighbor, Rwanda, of backing the militia. The front line between Congolese troops and M23 rebels had been calm in recent weeks until Thursday, when clashes erupted yet again. In Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari on Thursday in Sall, Republic of Nigeria capital, reminded Nigerians resident in the Asian country that they are the faces of Nigeria and should endeavor to project a positive image of the country through their actions, character, conduct, and general comportment. The president stated this during an interactive meeting with the leadership and select members of the Nigerian community as part of his engagements at the end of the first World Bio Summit 2022, while urging them to remain good ambassadors of Nigeria at all times. According to President Buhari, as law-abiding citizens of our great country, advised that you replicate the excellent Nigerian virtues by coexisting peacefully with your hosts and abide by the laws of the land. You must always strive to eschew any acts of lawlessness in your day-to-day activities and to take it as a major responsibility to encourage other Nigerians to always remain of excellent behavior. The European Union has launched an Africa-EU 2022 campaign tagged We See Africa, in line with a long-standing partnership with the continent. The ambassador of the EU, Samuel Isopi, announced this at a briefing in Lagos, stating that 2 young people, including Tenny, the entertainer, will be the ambassador of the campaign aimed at driving digital and agricultural skills. The campaign runs simultaneously in Nigeria and 4 other countries in Africa. A second initiative funded by the EU under the purview of the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, will be launched later this year.
With Eni, we will create online courses on design to nurture digital skills. It will tell us more about this later. With Tenny, we will explore the world of sustainable energies that can drive the future of the development of agriculture in Nigeria. Hogola's story will show us how the European Union's partnership with Nigeria has changed not only her life. Ogola started a cottage tomato processing enterprise She has then trained and mentored more than 200 women. And so thanks to the cooperation between Nigeria and the European Union, he has been trained in branding and marketing, which helped him develop further and grow his business. And now he's building the capacities of other people in his family, because they clearly demonstrate that, yes, it can be done. This is a program that has been designed, conceived by the Vice President, and is now implemented by the UN, but the European Union is by far the biggest donor, to place 20,000 young Nigerians with companies, Nigerian and European or foreign companies, for a period of at least 1 year. So it's a kind of paid traineeship, but a high level, with the objective of developing their skills.
And the United Nations Security Council has voted for the resumption of negotiations between parties to the disputed Western Sahara. The resolution called for the parties to resume negotiations in good faith with a view to achieving a just, lasting and mutually acceptable political situation. 13 countries in the 15-member council voted in favor of the resolution, with Kenya and Russia abstaining. Western Sahara, a former Spanish colony, is disputed by the Algerian-backed Polisario Front and Morocco.
The Security Council has once again failed to empower the mission with the practical and concrete measures to enable it to implement its mandate as established in Security Council Resolution 690 of 1991. The continued inaction of the Security Council in the face of the aggressive and persistent attempts by the occupying state of Morocco to obstruct and undermine the mandate of MINUSO and to forcibly impose a fait accompli in the occupied territories of the Sahrawi Republic leaves the Sahrawi people with no other option but to continue and intensify the legitimate armed struggle to defend our inalienable and non-negotiable right to self-determination and independence.
RoboCare is an innovative Tunisian startup that specializes in the design, development and marketing of plant disease detection services. The agriculture-specific drone technology is based on spectral imaging and AI.
Equipped with spectral imaging and artificial intelligence, this drone has the ability to scan massive agricultural lands and specify issues, facilitate resolutions for farmers, and save precious crop. Co-founder of RoboCare startup, Imin Hebri, says that her algorithms can predict the illness of a tree and specify over-irrigated or under-irrigated plants, among others.
RoboCare gives solutions to the farmer using modern technologies and artificial intelligence by photographing all plants using the drone that has a spectral camera. This camera is unique, like MRI or X-rays. We scan all the plants and then give the farmer the condition of the vegetation cover on his whole land.
The profit margin of farmer today is in constant decline from year to year. Today, when you do not monitor the fertilization or irrigation process, do not carry out analysis, and do not follow up on your land, you do not last for long. Today, agriculture is no longer traditional. With the cost increasing day by day, you must calculate everything. RoboCare was founded in 2020. The startup offers a solution for the rapid spread of diseases in greenhouse plants, the massive use of pesticides, and can reduce water used for irrigation. Forecast in Tunisia points to longer droughts, a reduction in water resources, and an increased number of fires over the next decade. Farmers, in addition to their knowledge and experience with the land and soil, can use modern technologies like RoboCare to overcome the problems of climate change and make better use of natural resources. Agriculture accounts for 80% of the water withdrawn, industry 5%, tourism 2%, and the rest 13% for drinking and domestic use, according to the Tunisia Agriculture Ministry.
Kenya now has 5G internet thanks to Safaricom, who made the launch in the country. Safaricom has become the first firm to deploy the technology commercially in East Africa and is initially offering Wi-Fi subscriptions as it attempts to win a greater share of the fixed data market. The company dominates the mobile data market, commanding about a 65% share, but it only holds a third of the fixed data market. The company says its initial focus will be on 5G Wi-Fi rather than mobile because there are still relatively few 5G compatible devices in Kenya. Out of nearly 27 million smartphones in use in the country, only about 200,000 are 5G compatible. Well, that's it on Network Africa. Thank you for watching. I'm Jackie Rogers.